Hi, everybody. Hello and welcome, and thanks to all of you for joining us today. Thanks for being a part of our day 2 of our special series of the Red Dot Cafe. We hope that this live stream series adds some value and inspiration to your daily life. I'm Angelica Cordero. I'm the TEDxSanAntonio licensee, and I'll be your host for today's event. We want everyone to take part in this conversation, so please leave your questions and comments in the feed. As Eric and Mitch chat, I'll be monitoring the feed to highlight questions that we might want to bring to them as they're talking. So I'll drop out for a little bit as they're chatting with one another. We're happy to be joined today by President and CEO of San Antonio Food Bank, Eric Cooper, and urban farmer Mitch Hagney. Back in 2014, Mitch Hagney talked about urban micro farmers and how they use tech to bring fresh produce closer to your front door. Years later, in 2017, we were joined by Eric, who told us about how to balance work and volunteering and how that makes our lives better. Today, they're joining us to reflect on their talks and their ideas, life since speaking, and the current local food economy during the COVID-19 crisis. Please join me in welcoming Eric and Mitch.
Angelica.
Hi there, thanks for having us.
Why don't we have the two of you tell us a little bit about how you know each other, and then speak a little bit about the talks that you gave a few years ago.
You bet. I'll go first. And I've had the privilege of working with Mitch at several different levels, specifically in a partnership at the food bank when he was starting his business and we were working our urban farm at the food bank. We had built a greenhouse and had really started to launch into hydroponics, and Mitch lent his knowledge and helped advise and consult and really helped us get started in that space. Then the opportunity to work with them at the Food Policy Council and just, efforts around our local food economy and addressing gaps in the food system, food deserts, and getting people access to fresh produce. So it's been a lot of fun working with Mitch. For me, it's been a few years since the opportunity to share some thoughts around volunteerism and to be a part of the TEDx platform. And honestly, it was humbling to be a part of it. And I think for any of the speakers, you walk away learning so much more than maybe you bring to the table. And so it was just an overall good experience. And I can't wait to maybe give you some updates. But I'll let Mitch talk about how we know each other and his experience.
It's actually very cool to be able to do this and talk with Eric. A lot of people don't know the commitment of the San Antonio Food Bank to producing a huge amount of food means that more food is grown on site at the food bank than all throughout the rest of the city of San Antonio. So Eric and I have worked on a lot of different urban agriculture projects and different ways to try to optimize the city's cultivation and production. When I spoke, which was in 2014, that was just about when my business, Local Sprout, was beginning. And I talked about some of the potential for cities to use distributed urban agriculture to create some self-sufficiency. And right now, it seems that type of self-sufficiency is more important than ever. And I'm looking forward to talking about a little bit the way that the food bank, but also local small producers are really filling a needed gap during the coronavirus crisis.
So I think when I had the opportunity to share some thoughts on the stage, it was really reminding all of us that we have an opportunity to bring mental health and physical health to ourselves through volunteerism. The reality that our bodies as human beings we need to serve, and that there's a lot of benefits to that. And I think I've seen lives transformed from their ability to just get out and volunteer, and the blessings and the enrichment that one takes away from service sometimes is even greater than the deliverables that you hope to give in your act of service. And so I continue to see that and the lives of the individuals and families, the companies and the groups that come out and volunteer at the food bank. And I know for myself personally, it's definitely been enriching my life.
As a volunteer who's come out to the food bank many times and worked with Eric's farm staff there, the ways that public engagement ends up getting used for food security through the food bank and through other initiatives is really humbling and impressive. Based on at least the way that I've seen kind of on the ground, the way that the food bank operates, volunteers play a crucial role in getting some of that food cultivated, but also helping store and pack meals. A lot of people think of the food bank as a pantry, but Eric can probably characterize the way that their mission ends up working is they get large amounts of food from wholesale sources, and then they try to transform that into ways that it can be distributed through the communities. So good friends of mine and myself, we have worked producing meal kits, kind of transforming the raw ingredients into something that's actionable from the community. Is that what you find some of the most important part of volunteer aspects within the food bank are, Eric?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we have a network of about 550 different nonprofit partners throughout South Texas, and 70% of them are faith-based. Many of them run 100% on volunteers. So they might be members of a congregation that are stepping up to staff and man their food pantry. They come each week to pick up their food order from the San Antonio Food Bank warehouse. They take that food back to their food pantry, and now they interface with families in crisis. They do some intake and provide a lot of service there at their food pantry, and those volunteers, I think, are just angels because they're really on the front lines of the issue of hunger, and they're serving. And then we have all these additional angels, so to speak, that come to the warehouse to get the food, as Mitch said, either harvested off the farm or meals made in the kitchen or boxes packed up and ready for distribution to those partner organizations or to our programs that serve the community directly, whether a senior receiving a food box delivered at home or through a congregate site like a senior nutrition site with the city of San Antonio, or a child that might be getting a backpack supply, which is distributed by a school teacher at a school. Our volunteers usually pack all of that, and you know, when I see the impact of the food that's distributed, I can't help but think of the hands that were involved in all of that preparation. Mitch, I tell you, you know, we talk often about just the sacredness of food and you know, produce and crops that are grown by farmers, and that each individual produce item received nourishment from soil, maybe, and sunlight and rain and all of those precious resources that help us grow food, either conventionally or hydroponically. Farmers look after our food supply, which nourishes us, and it really makes food a whole lot more sacred than I think sometimes we think of it.
What my TEDx talk was about was thinking about resources that cities offer, like volunteers and like vertical spaces that can allow us to enable agriculture in places that we didn't used to expect. So soil and rain, very traditionally important for the way that crops are cultivated. And a lot of what we ended up thinking about when we were starting Local Sprout, and what we continue to, is ways that you can use vertical surfaces like buildings to trellis up, or ways that you can use waste streams like bottles or pallets or CO2 even, in order to have structures of the city work cohesively to produce more crops. And so I think
to see if you can hear me.
we can hear you, Eric.
I can't hear you guys. Oh, you bet.
Sorry, guys. For a second, we had a small little glitch. Yeah, go ahead. You should be able to hear everybody now. I just wanted to let you know for 1 second that we're getting a lot of comments about what you guys are seeing, the impact of COVID-19 on the food bank and on local farmers. And if you could expand a little bit on that.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. The San Antonio Food Bank has been responding to crisis of COVID-19. For us, it started at the end of February, really making sure that families we were serving were getting an extra allotment of food so that they would be prepared for today, honestly, when we're all sheltering in place. And so making sure that we were able to provide not only food, but cleaning supplies or pet food to many of the households that we serve. Once things started to escalate and the school closures went into place, we really moved from kind of that prevention and preparedness to our full-on response. And we've been distributing food at a rate that has been a little overwhelming. We've seen a 40% increase in demand last week, and with the increased layoffs and job loss, we're almost up to 100% demand. So typically we're feeding about 58,000 people a week, and that's almost up to 120,000 people. And the COVID-19 crisis has changed our strategies, just in making sure that we keep people safe. When it comes to our volunteers, we've been able to we've had to streamline our approach and make the groups a little smaller, and then invoke some protocol that allows us to make sure that people are safe. And then our distributions, we're having to change the way we handle them, and the pantries are still open. It's important, I think, for people to know that the food bank and our pantries are all essential services. They will remain open. The staff and volunteers can come and go from the food bank and our food pantries, and families in need can also come and go as they need food assistance. So we'll have some major mega sites that will be distributing food, and we're working with the locations like the Alamo Dome to set up and communicate. Want to make sure that people know to go to our website at safoodbank.org, or give us a call at 210-431-8326. That's the hotline number. So if there's a family or individual in need, you'll want to go to our website and make a food request there, or you can call us at our hotline, and we'll be able to get that resource to you, or let you know where the distributions will be occurring. But I think for all of us, we need to be mindful of those without, and as Mitch mentioned, it's our food supply that's going to become critical in this environment.
There are some things that you can do in terms of local production that can help shore up a little bit of your own food security. There's a lot of different vegetables that can be cultivated with relative ease at your home. I wanted to show a couple different examples. Something that you can save a little bit of money on and make sure that you get access to fresh produce is you can grow mushrooms at home. There's online resources that you can purchase kits to be able to cultivate mushrooms. I should get about 3 flushes of oyster mushrooms off of a single kit that cost me about $19 online. You can cultivate a lot of.
So much demand on this system in this environment. This is a good example of the COVID-19 crisis.
There's a lot of different things that are currently in harvest time, like Brussels sprouts. I got this from my garden, or lots of delicious beets. If you're looking to cultivate something right now, and you don't have access to a hydroponic system to produce things like kale, really high yielding stuff that we can plant right now, and you don't necessarily need really amazing soil to do that, is okra is a great thing to plant right now and super high yielding, and will harvest in about 60 days or so. Tomatoes, peppers, amaranth, Malabar spinach. These are all things that you can order some seeds online for pretty cheap and get some yield towards the late spring and summer, when food security is still going to be a really important challenge. I also kind of wanted to mention, a lot of folks are anxious about whether or not they can get deliveries from HEB or deliveries for food in general. Maybe they're apprehensive about going to HEB because of potential infectious disease risks there. There are other sources for food deliveries besides just large-scale grocery options. And some of those are actually local farmers. So small ranchers like Parker Creek Ranch produces grass-fed beef, and they have a whole bunch of other eggs and pork and meat options. They actually deliver to people's houses. Peaceful Pork does the same thing. If you want coffee, Pulp Coffee, a local roaster, is delivering to people's houses. And a lot of different food manufacturers, Health Bombs, which is produces healthy meal supplements, they deliver to people's houses. So we're seeing not necessarily a transition, because we were already headed in the direction of more digital ordering and digital supply chains, but COVID-19, as a result of putting most people at home, is really increasing people's reliance on deliveries. And so each of those organizations and many, many others now have local delivery options that don't even necessarily go through the mail. Those companies a lot of the time will drop directly on your doorstep. So there's a lot of different ways to get food in a time like this, besides just the old strategies of just go to HEB.
So I wanted to just jump in really quickly, Mitch. It was kind of funny, in the middle of everything, we had a small little technical difficulty, and it dropped both myself and Eric out for a brief second as you were speaking. Oh. But we're back, we're here. So I was hoping that maybe you guys could expand a little bit about what you think this might mean for the future of the local food economy after all this crisis is over. What might we hope to see happening afterwards?
Well, I think for us at the food bank, it's going to be a long-term recovery effort. This crisis has affected us, physically, emotionally, and economically, and that economic impact is going to be a long road back to recovery. I hope it's shorter than what's being estimated, but when I look out at the devastation of many businesses and the loss of work for so many families, we need to gain some consumer confidence. We need to be able to get travel and tourism back up, hotel and lodging, food service. There are a lot of struggling businesses, and there's been an unprecedented amount of unemployment claims. And so the response when it comes to food really needs to be at the federal level. USDA needs to unleash support through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program that will allow for existing SNAP recipients to maintain access. Those affected by the COVID-19 crisis can apply for disaster SNAP. And then there is an additional product of PSNAP, or Pandemic SNAP. They're still working out a lot of the details, but it could create an environment where school children that would have been fed had school been in session, that were participating in the National School Lunch, School Breakfast program, would be able, if the state of Texas and the Health and Human Services Commission authorize it to be able to load electronic benefits to those Lone Star cards of those households that have small children participating in the National School Lunch, School Breakfast program. So when you think about the environment of our school districts being closed and the lack of access those kids have to school nutrition, it's huge. The schools are the largest childhood feeding operations in our community, and the fact that they're closed right now means there's hundreds of thousands of kids that are missing those meals, and those families are having to make up the difference. There are some great school districts doing some wonderful things, delivering meals on school buses, hosting direct distributions to families at their elementary, middle, and high schools, and they're doing what they can, but it's estimated that we've lost about 75 to 80% of the meals that would have gone out. So when I think of the new economy, I think of making sure that those federal resources are available to eligible families. And then I also believe that we'll have a new perspective and appreciation for one another. When we saw those empty shelves at traditional grocery stores, HEB used the words Texas friendly. We all need to be aware of shoppers in front of us and behind us, and the opportunity not to take what you need. The acts of hoarding cause people to go without, and I think we have enough to nourish ourselves. We just need to be equitable, and when you think about that at a higher level, there's enough food produced in America that we shouldn't have a hunger problem. We just have to have the willpower, and maybe Texas can lead it with being Texas friendly. Mitch?
The economic impact of what this already looks like is pretty challenging. One of the largest employers in Texas is the restaurant industry and the hospitality industry in general. Many of the viewers at home know already from their own experience what this is going to mean for a wide range of industries. It feels uncouth a little bit to talk about potentially beneficial long-term trends about how this will affect things, because there's going to be a lot of scarcity and challenges for families and folks in the meantime. And when the stay-at-home orders drop out, we have to make sure that we support those industries. And even when we personally don't have a lot of consumer confidence, to make sure that we spend at restaurants and at hotels and we do some traveling to try to pick the economy back up. And in the meantime, we can also engage in pickup and delivery services to try to support in the interim a lot of these restaurants and businesses that are struggling in the meantime. Because those are also important. Besides just supporting the restaurants themselves, they support the whole supply chain behind them, including the farmers and producers that they rely on. Something else that I'm a little bit concerned about for families in the meantime is the focus on increased staples like pasta and rice and other dry goods mean that there's a decrease in, I'm guessing, produce consumption, because it's harder to get access to those fresh supply chains for things like vegetables and fruits. So it is really important that we nourish our bodies to increase our immune response and also for our long-term health in the meantime. And direct online orders from folks like Farmhouse Delivery or HEB or other folks to supply our households with the proper vegetables is going to be really important. In the long term, it's possible that the local supply chains will get an increased focus because there's relative challenges with bringing things all the way from China or from whatever other locations they're coming from. And so local producers, at least local farmers, have a higher demand right now for what they're producing than they ever have, which can be really good for the sustainability of the food system in the long term. And we need to make sure that we're supporting those farmers. We're already seeing an increased focus from local producers. There's local distilleries that primarily produce whiskey, Rebecca Creek and Ranger Creek, are both now shifted their production to producing ethanol for hand sanitizer. And so we're seeing the local community really step up to try to provide for our local needs. And it's important that we think about our immediate community, about how we can build up those local supply chains, because this pandemic is not going to be the last disaster or issue that a global and vulnerable world of scarcity experiences. Our food system was already unsustainable in a lot of ways. And this is one opportunity, at least, to get closer to the roots of where our resources come from, to make sure that that as much of our own production and as much of our own relationships that we can have with our producers, that we build those up in the meantime.
I'm so glad to have had you guys on today to talk about this. It's been something from afar that I think that we at TEDxSanAntonio have been kind of watching and trying to keep up to date as to what's happening in the community and how it's impacting and who the people are that are stepping up. And so I wanted to say thank you on behalf of TEDxSanAntonio and our community for all the hard work that the both of you are doing during this time of the crisis to provide for people who need it right now. We're right at the end, and I just thought that I would ask, how can people stay in touch with the both of you and stay up to date with the things that you're doing in the community currently? And maybe are there volunteers that you guys are looking for in the meantime? How can we support you during this time of crisis?
Well, thank you for that invitation, Angelica. The best way to get involved with us at the San Antonio Food Bank is just to visit our website at safoodbank.org. I'm available, so I'm going to give my email address, and it's eCooper@safoodbank.org. We are a community organization. We need the community to support us if we'll be successful in our mission of fighting hunger and feeding hope. So if you've got time on your hands and would like to volunteer, or you've got access to food, you're in the supply chain and you'd like to figure out how you might minimize your waste and help others in need, or you have some extra dollars that you'd like to contribute and leverage those dollars in a charitable way to help feed families, or just want to raise your voice on some of the public policy issues, or advocate for good food policy. Mitch and the Food Policy Council tirelessly work and really trying to create some sustainable food systems and making sure that all residents have access to good nutrition. And so together with public partnership, we'll be able to do that. And so please send me an email, call us, or visit our website, and we'd love to have you stay involved, and are grateful for the TEDx community.
One other thing that you can do to support the food bank is a direct financial contribution as well. With the increased demand and the increased complexity of this situation, more produce and foods and more volunteer work is great, and it's something that they rely on. But they also need to be able to source things from outside the community, and so a financial support of the food bank is something that's really important. For volunteer work for the Food Policy Council, we meet on the first Wednesday of every month, and we're now doing digital meetings. We focus on a lot of different sustainability and food insecurity related phenomenon. One thing that we're working on right now for the COVID-19 response is to build up our Healthy Corner Store initiative, which operates in 8 convenience stores in the southeast side that are far away from HEBs. These places are more important than ever, we think, in making sure that there's good, healthy produce accessible to neighborhoods that rely on them. And we're always looking for more donations and more effort in order to build up those as community hotspots for where we know there's a lot of chronic disease, and now there's accessibility issues with the supply chain problems. But the other thing that I would just implore folks to do is to try to support local in this time. There's a lot of different companies. There's There, besides just the restaurants, there's coffee shops that are out, etc. If there's any way for you to make purchases online in order to support these businesses in a time of difficult scarcity, then please do so, because if this is a 3-month crisis, we can try to have everything on life support in the meantime while everyone is quarantined, and then hopefully have a great local economy to look forward to afterwards. Or some of these companies can have no revenue in the meantime, and we'll be left with a hollowed out system in a lot of different ways. So if you can do things like order coffee to be delivered to your house, or order beef and pork and eggs, etc. Think about ways to spread out your purchases besides just Amazon and H-E-B, and think about ways to get those deliveries to your house.
Wonderful. Thank you guys again so much for joining us today. I really hope that everything turns out well in the next few weeks and we're in a different place. And if not, we're here to support you. And I hope that today people found a lot of value in the things that you had to share, and that you see an overwhelming amount of support from those of us who are watching today. So thank you once again. And we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, Angelica.
Thanks so much for having us.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to say again, thanks to Eric and Mitch for joining us today. We'll be posting links on our website at TEDxSanAntonio.com/red.cafe. We'll have links that Mitch shared with us today, as well as locations in which you can actually provide donations and support to our food bank here in San Antonio. This is just a reminder that tomorrow, March 26th, we'll have Eric Dorset joining us on the Red Dot Cafe at noon Central here in this same location. So please let us know. Join us again tomorrow, and we'll see you then. Please take care and stay safe.